Hey, I'm Jack Lauterback. I do the morning show on 103.7 Play, and I was asked by a friend to come here and interview them, and I'm so excited to be here. Now, have you ever thought that you were too old to pursue your dream? Have you thought maybe your time has passed and it just hasn't happened and you're down? I know someone who believes it's never too late. I have her with me right now. It's Charlotte Sistrun. She is the creator, the producer, the host of Meet Us at the Cafe. It's a show that shares stories about seniors, about their dreams, about what they're trying to do. And she is very inspiring. And I'm going to let her talk about it. Charlotte, first off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. The pleasure is mutual admiration society up in here. Thank you so much, Jack.
Well, thank you. Now, Charlotte, explain to me what Meet Us at the Cafe is, how you came up with it, and kind of give us an overview of it.
You put the emphasis correctly on the us. Meet Us at the Cafe is a series of shows highlighting seniors. They tell their stories, and now it's become a virtual show. And we have several episodes that have already been produced. They have already been recorded, and we'll talk about that a little later because the process is just as interesting a part of the story as the stories that the other seniors are telling. Meet Us at the Cafe. Us. Emphasis on us. The U and the S. Acronym for Unstoppable Seniors. There's that U and there's that S.
Got it.
Unsung Survivors. There's that U and there's that S. It's Unstoppable Seniors, unsung survivors who have uniquely spectacular stories to share. And that's just the basic premise of the show. We seniors who are unstoppable, who have gotten to our age and have been through so much, have stories to share, and so many of us have not had the opportunity to share those stories, and this provides the forum for that to happen.
Now, you yourself are an unstoppable senior. Was there a particular moment or something that happened that inspired you to start this series? I mean, have you been thinking about doing this for a while, or did one day it just came to you?
I call myself an intergenerational visionary. I shared it with my children. I said, intergenerational visionary. I always wanted to come up with acronyms and that kind of thing. I said, that's the IV. They said, Mom, don't you ever say that. I said, no, because we need to be hydrated. IV, giving breath to our stories. And I believe that seniors have stories to tell. Why? Because seniors have a lifetime of experiences which give us a unique perspective on the past, present, and future. Some may call that wisdom. We've loved, we've been through loss, disappointments, triumphs, tears, cheers, using faith over fear to overcome insurmountable odds. So, for me, Jack, what motivates me is that I come to the conclusion that there's no new experience. There's nothing new under the sun. It's just new people experiencing it at a different time, at a new time. So if they can hear and see someone who's been through it, perhaps it will inspire them, encourage them to say, hey, look, if they've been through it, I can be through it also. I also believe that we seniors play a vital role in the family. We carry on cultural traditions. We are guardians of rich cultural heritage, and many of us are living legacies ourselves. And we pass that love and those cultural values and traditions on to the next generation. So, you asked the question of what kind of got me to doing this. Well, originally it was to have been a physical show, locally produced. I said, look, we got to tell our stories. There's so many stories that are untold. Let's just have fun with this. I'm at a stage in my life. I love to hear stories. I love to facilitate the telling of stories. So I looked around in the Richmond area for a physical location for a cafe where we seniors could get together, over a cup of coffee or tea and start to share our stories in a relaxed atmosphere and spill the tea because we got some stories to tell. I'm telling you, we do. And so this was back in November of 2019. Fast forward, I said, we're going to start producing in 2020. I had come across a gentleman who was hilarious, and he was going to be sort of the sidekick to keep the show rolling. And I said, we'll start producing in 2020. Fast forward again. 2020 came, and so did COVID-19.
Yeah.
It turned everybody's world upside down.
Oh, yeah.
And the ironic thing of all of this is that it claimed to favor us seniors. We were the primary, we talk about target market all the time. We were the primary market. If you're a senior and you breathe on somebody or somebody else breathes on you, you could die. I mean, it was just, we didn't know what to expect. This was a new thing that happened. So we were all told to social distance, stay inside. If you do go outside, wear a mask, but don't go outside. Seniors, please stay inside. So I stayed inside for about 3 weeks, finally went outside. These things, I don't know if anybody knows what this is, were of short supply. And I'm going to show you this. If I offend anybody, I'm sorry, but I hope you know what this is. Short supply of this. And then, hey, look, I went out to get some of this and I had to search everywhere and a little squirt, you're supposed to do this. And then you're supposed to rub your hands up this 20 seconds and all this kind of stuff. So that became the new norm. And I said, what's going to happen to this vision? The restaurants were shut down. The cafe where I was going to have this seniors come was shut down. Just everything shut down. We shut down. So after about 3 weeks of just not knowing what was going on, thinking that perhaps I was going to be one of the victims because it indiscriminately just attacked you. They didn't know how, but it did. My sister, bless her heart, hi Jane, my sister decided she was going to do a virtual barbecue. I mean, so quickly, Memorial Day came. And she said, let's do a virtual family barbecue. I didn't know what in the world that was. And she pulled all of us together and we got on this thing called Zoom. And I was able to see my brothers and sisters and family members I had not seen for years. Some of them I had never seen before. And we had a fabulous time together. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm still here. I still survived. I survived COVID-19. I could have been one of the statistics, but I'm here. So let me, in the midst of this, still pursue the dream because this is a new technology. Suppose I could use Zoom or a technology like that to get the seniors together and still let them tell their stories.
Right.
Okay. I contacted my sidekick. Hey, Bob, are you interested? Do you know how to use Zoom? He said, I think I can. I said, okay, let's try to do this. Let's try to continue with it another way. And I called another friend of mine from Philadelphia, she's from Lansdowne, and her story is off the chain. I said, why don't we just start and see where this takes us? Well, with the three of us, we did our show. It was absolutely hilarious because we didn't know what we were doing. We just delved into it and we actually did a show. You will see that show. It will be airing soon. It's in post-production, but it tells the story. It allows them to tell their stories. And as a matter of fact, I have 7 series in the series that are in post-production, and they will be released one by one on social media platforms. So that's basically the backdrop or the story of how this started, why it started. We seniors are here. We have stories to tell, and this is a platform for us to tell those stories.
Well, Charlotte, you were just talking about the other people telling their stories. We're here to hear your story today. Now, you created this. You're the host. You talk to people, but I want to hear more about you. Now, you live in Richmond, Virginia now, where I live. but you were actually born in DC in sort of a historical house. Can you tell me more about this?
Well, Jack, thank you for asking that question. Yes, I was born in the 100 block of S Street Northwest in Washington, D.C. I'm not purposely not giving the address because I want everybody going there to see that house. That was over 70 years ago when I was born, you guys. But I was born in that house. Why does it have significance? My goodness, I'm going to name several things and then I'll explain. Howard University, Abraham Lincoln, protests for racial justice, and the United States Post Office. What does that all have to do with the house in which I was born? First of all, it's kind of humorous because I don't know what happened. I couldn't wait to get to the hospital. I had to be born in that house, which is the home of my, I'm serious. That explains a lot of things. But it's the home of my grand uncle and aunt, Thomas P. Bomar, who married my aunt, my grand aunt, Jeanette Bomar. And my uncle was an attorney. Oh my goodness. He worked at the United States Post Office. I don't know what sequence to give all of this in because he worked at the post office, and I can talk about that, the historical connection to Abraham Lincoln at the end of this. But he became the top ranking African-American at the United States Post Office. And with so much emphasis now on the post office and what it's going to do and what it's going to become and privatizing and that kind of thing, when I really started to look at what my uncle had done, my granduncle, and I called him Daddy Pet oh, that's on the record now, Daddy Pet, my Daddy Pet and my Mommy Net. But I'm going to tell you some of the things that he did. First of all, he got his law degree from Howard University. Significance, the first African-American female vice presidential candidate went to Howard University. So there's that connection. He also was in I'm reading this now, guys. I have this because it's historical and it has numbers in it. You know, we got to get this right.
Yeah, of course.
1939, he was elected National Secretary of the National Alliance of Postal Employees, a Black postal workers union. So he used his law degree to fight on behalf of racial justice in the United States Post Office. In 1947, while Assistant District Superintendent at Large, he met with U.S. President Harry Truman, to speak about legislative change for the United States Post Office.
Amazing.
In 1952, my granduncle was promoted to Assistant General Superintendent of the Postal Transportation Service. And from 1957 to 1970, he served as the union's general counsel. But why it's so important to me today is because 6 of my 7 brothers and sisters worked for the post office, as did my dad. And all 6 of them have retired. So look at that story. But you know, what's happening with the post office today, we don't know where it's going, but that's a part of the history.
Yeah.
Now to the part that blew my mind. I knew that my uncle was the Black man who looked like Abraham Lincoln, because when I would go to his house, he had a statue in the foyer of himself, of that home that I was born in, the 100 block of S Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. And I would see that statue all the time, and I did not really know the significance. Well, the film Abe Lincoln in Illinois, starring Raymond Massey, was scheduled to premiere in Washington, D.C. at the RKO Keith's Theater. And that was in 1940. The newspaper Women's Club sponsored a publicity campaign, charity benefit to find the person who most looked like Abraham Lincoln. Okay. Folks came before a panel of judges, and when my uncle got up there and they saw him, they said, oh my goodness, he is his identical twin. You win. So the panel was very excited. They were supposed to let the person who won go on stage with the star of the film, receive the award, appear on a radio talk show, and all that kind of good stuff. Now, mind you, it's about Abraham Lincoln, the president who signed the Emancipation Proclamation to free the slaves. So they're about to send him his $25 prize, and this is the judges, and they look at the address, and it says 100 block S Street Northwest. In those days, total segregation. Northwest was nothing but, excuse me for saying this, but the colored people. So they said, oh, no, he didn't. No, they didn't say it like that, I'm sure. They were incensed and they were not ready for it. And they said, hey, look, this thing is about to go on. So we've got to go on with it, but we've got to change a few things. So they let him and his daughter come in because he was so fair-skinned until he passed for white. And they, instead of letting him sit on the front row, they had him sit on the fifth row and did not acknowledge his presence at all. So, you know, what in the world? But it was not gone unnoticed. As a result of that, there was a civil organization that protested outside of the theater. And so there was a lot of noise that went on as a result of it. And what gets me is that here today with so much talk about Abraham Lincoln, racial justice, the protests that are going on. Here is my uncle, my granduncle, my daddy pet, who was not allowed to attend a film premiere because of the color of his skin. So that was how many years ago? 1940? It's 2020 now. What is that, 70? How many years ago was that?
80 years.
80, thank you. See, you can count. You can count. 80 years ago when that happened. So that historical event, and why I'm so excited about this, Jack, is that those are the types of stories that have been swept under the rug, that have not been told, you know. And so I'm just so excited to share that at such a time when these incidents and these quote unquote hot topics are permeating and the atmosphere. And this is reminiscent 80 years ago, and here we are.
Yeah.
University, Emancipation Proclamation, Abraham Lincoln, and the post office. Where do we go from here? Our stories need to be told.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Meet Us at the Cafe was created for. I mean, stories just like you told right then. I want to talk about your background a little bit more. Now, you mentioned 2020, of course, has been a crappy year, let's just say it, especially for seniors having to deal with COVID and everything. What in your background has kind of helped you to rise above all this, to seize the moment, so to speak, and to go forward with Meet Us at the Cafe? What in your background has kind of helped you be the person that you are today?
I come from a rich ancestry, and I guess it's in my DNA. My grandfather on my mother's side and my grandmother had 13 children.
Oof.
They lived in Dares Wharf, Maryland, DARESWHARF, Maryland. My grandfather was an entrepreneur personified. He decided that in order to raise his children, he would need sort of a community of services, and he provided those services to others in the community. He had 85 acres of land. He owned a Shell gas company, a grocery store, and a farm. That's phenomenal to me. I remember being a child and chasing the chickens around in the yard, and I'm not really liking going over his house because they had outhouses then, and we could only turn on the electricity at certain times because it was so precious and priceless. So to just look back at that time, I didn't understand the significance of it. Then fast forward, my own parents. Oh my goodness, do I have a legacy there? Let's talk about my dad. My mother and dad, first of all, my dad, Joseph Wilson, and my mother, Viola Wilson, they had 8 of us. Oof. Oh my goodness. So we know what people did back in the day. 13 children and then 8 of us. My father, to provide for us, had 3 sources of income. One, he worked at the United States Post Office. That wasn't enough to take care of 8 children. So he also had a small construction company, and he owned 3 apartment buildings.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. Well, my father, at age 42, became ill. And he fought the illness. He had colon cancer. And he fought the illness. And I remember those days of him just in so much pain because they put him in the hospital, started giving him these heavy medicines. And he said, I want to go home. And he came home to spend his last days. He suffered. And one night, I was downstairs with him, and he was able to come downstairs. And he said, Charlotte, I know God is able to heal me. But then in the event that he does not, I'm feeling very good today, he said, tonight. He said, I don't know why, but in the event that he does not, will you promise me that you will make something out of your life? And I'm a teenager at that time, a young teenager. And I said, what is this all about? I didn't understand the significance of it then. And he said, I asked you, would you promise to make something of your life, something great? And I said, okay. He said, oh no, we're going to shake on that. And we shook on it. And he went back upstairs. And the next morning, he was having this strange sound in his throat. And I went in the room, and my mother was in there, and some other folks had come. And I sent my mother downstairs. I said, Mom, you call your pastor because I don't know what's going on, but Dad, something is happening with Dad. And my dad looked at me and he said, Charlotte, I can't see. Will you sit me up? Will you give me some water? And he struggled to sit up as I held him up in my arms. And he died in my arms. And I will always love him. I never, because I was so young, I didn't really have the chance to tell my dad that I loved him. And this is the first time that the world is hearing his story. Here's a man that did so much, that loved his children. But just like the Chad Boseman that recently died, the Black Panther guy who died at 43, the same age as my dad, from colon cancer, just like my dad.
Yep.
Chad was known, but my father was not. Well, then there's my mother, Jack. My mother was left to raise 8 babies by herself. She never learned how to drive. It was, I don't think she ever had a friend after that because she never remarried. So by herself, she would take her little shopping cart, and she had to have a special shopping cart and walk miles with that shopping cart to get food for us. We didn't know what fast food was because she fixed us 3 full meals every morning. She used to fix oatmeal, which I hated. And when she would come to me and make sure I ate my oatmeal, I would gargle in my mouth and try to put it under my tongue. I hated it. When she turned her head, I would spit that stuff out. I didn't realize the significance of that now. She also would take all 8 of us on public transportation. Imagine a woman with 8 little kids in back of her going on public transportation everywhere she went. And she hung all of her clothes on the line. And she used to tell me, Charlotte, you hang up the clothes. I hated that I would get lost as often as I could so I wouldn't have to do that. But anyway, the perseverance of my mother, she died in 2016 with all of us children. surrounding her. And she was peaceful. And I did get a chance to say goodbye to my mother before she died, because I was on my way back to Richmond, Virginia, when I decided with a friend of mine to stop by my mother's house to see her. And she was sitting in a chair because she couldn't move. She's 94 years old. And she saw me. She said, "Hello, Charlotte. How are you?" I said, "Mom, I'm fine. I just came to see you on my way back to Virginia." And she said, "Okay." I said, "Mom, would you sing your favorite song for me?" She said, "Yes, I will." And she lifted her head and she started singing her song. "He didn't have to do it, but he did." And she sang in a strong voice. And I held her hand and I looked her in the eyes. I said, "Mom, I love you." And she looked back at me and she said, "And I love you too." Oh. And then she put her head on the chair and I felt her pulse, because you didn't know, she was just quietly sleeping there. And then my sister came home. I had gone back to where I was staying in Philadelphia, and I went to sleep. And when I woke up at 4:00 in the morning, my phone was zinging all over the place. And it was my family saying, "Mom is not responsive." When my baby sister came home, my mother was not responding. She was just sitting in that chair. So I got the chance to say goodbye to my mother. I got the chance to say I love you to my mother. So I was able to see both of them as they transcended into that other dimension. So these are the things that keep me going. Here's a woman who had 8 children, and we can't live without our cell phones. We can't live without our cars. We can't live without this. She raised 8 children. So all I can say, thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You have inspired me to keep on kicking. As long as I have breath in my body and my mind is connected to everything else, and I can think and I can see and I can talk, I'm going to use it, because life, Jack, doesn't owe me anything. I owe life, and that's what keeps me going.
That was beautiful. It really was. Thank you for sharing those stories about your parents. I'd like to ask you a question about you personally. Sometimes when you speak to older people who you said it earlier, have lived so much more, have seen so much more, I like to ask, what is on your bucket list? Are there things you've accomplished already? Are there things you still want to accomplish? And do you have a bucket list? So would you be willing to talk about it with me?
You asked about my bucket list. Well, what I really, really want to do is to connect with some of those whose stories are profound and who have achieved quote unquote success, like the Jack Canfield. He's a storyteller. Oprah Winfrey, a storyteller. I love to meet with her. But the person that I really like to meet is Tyler Perry.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to meet Tyler Perry. He tells stories. He's in stories. Do you hear me, Tyler? I want to meet you. That's on my bucket list. This septuagenarian wants to meet you, Tyler. Okay? That's on my bucket list.
If Meet Us in the Cafe becomes as big as we hope, then maybe Tyler will see it and you'll get to meet him. It could happen. You never know.
You have to put it out there. You just got to I'm telling you my life and exposing myself to you, Jack, is because if I can do it, an ordinary person who recognizes other ordinary unstoppable seniors, other unsung survivors who have uniquely spectacular stories to tell. And I guarantee you, everybody who's looking at this right now is one of those people. They just don't feel like their stories are spectacular enough to tell. Look into it and you'll see what makes you so unique. Uniquely spectacular. We got to have US in it. I almost knocked my glasses off. Oh my goodness. I got so excited. And that's it.
Well, I think that's a pretty good bucket list to have right there. Let me ask you, as someone who's lived a full life, what do you have to tell people who feel like maybe their dreams have passed them by? Maybe they haven't reached their potential. They feel trapped. They're not happy. Do you have advice you could give? And this can go to seniors. It can go to young people, middle age. What advice would you give to people?
I'm going to be quick with this one. Don't give up. look up, live up with purpose. That's my advice.
That's great.
And
It's
that's
very good.
my advice to you.
Charlotte, you are a fascinating woman. You have so much energy. You have a lot more energy than I do. And
I don't. No, I don't.
You are inspiring. And I think it's going to be inspiring to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are happy you've started Meet Us at the Cafe. And I think it's only going to grow. And hopefully once COVID ends, you can actually meet people at cafes. You don't have to meet over Zoom.
Look, I'm loving this because all of this is virtual, And by the way, I've got love in my cup, so we can see what everybody's got in their cup, and my cup runneth over with love, So I thank you for that. What you just said, because I take that and I receive it, and I'm going to look forward to that, Jack, because I love your positive energy also. Thank you so much, Jack.
We're going to meet up for some coffee once this is all over. Charlotte Sistrun, Meet Us at the Cafe. I'm looking forward to seeing all the episodes. I'm looking forward to hearing other stories. And you're doing a great thing. Thank you very much. We all appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.